This is Our View, brought to you by the 40,000 Washington Federation of State Employees. For several years, the subject of worker safety at our state's institutions has been left on the back burner, while injuries to the workers continued. During the closing days of this year's legislative session, those workers went to the legislature to say they no longer accept injury as part of their jobs.
We're here to ask the legislature to fund some safety measures to protect our employees at Western State Hospital and institutions across the state, and they don't do that right now. There's a violent culture at Western State Hospital. Many employees do not have the opportunity to turn their heads from that. It is oftentimes a situation where you don't know if it's coming from the left or the right, so you come to work every day as if you're a target out there, and the culture of violence has not subsided. Our taxpayers should know that the astronomical cost coming out of Western State Hospital alone in L&I compensatory claims is 26% out of the entire L&I budget for institutions in DSHS. And you need to know that in order to decrease that amount, you need to have the staff there, the funding up front to protect your family members, your staff people that are giving the care to this population.
Every day I go to work, I believe I'm a target. I was just assaulted about 3 days ago. I hope they pass a bill and they put more staff on each ward.
Since we first started raising Cain about this issue, suddenly the Safety Committee at Western State Hospital is meeting and management is attending. That wasn't happening before. Suddenly the Safety Committee is allowed to talk about assaults on workers, which they had been previously told was really not their purview and they shouldn't be looking at that. Can you imagine that? So the pressure is netting results. It's not netting the results we need and want, not all of it, but we are taking steps forward, and that's thanks to your efforts. So I really, really appreciate the help that you've provided. We're going to keep the pressure on. It shouldn't hurt to go to work.
A major retailer had a grand opening in a new store in Lakewood. They had some special guests, a few of the workers who work in the foreign sweatshops that make many of the items sold in the store.
Southern India, they make shirts, pants and children's pants and small children's blouses, infants, garments, everything manufactured in India, South India. The legal work 8 hours a day, but the company fixed the high target production. That's why they can't complete the production up to 8 to 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours also working in the factory. Government fix wages, minimum wages for $2 per day, but company not paid the $2. They paid sometime $1.75 to $1.8. And they are not given any extra overtime work. Sometimes they are work free, the forced overtime. The workers interested, not interested, they are not bothered. See, they are very difficult to live in Bangalore. Bangalore, one of the biggest city, the IT industry is there. They are earning $2,000 something in a month, but garment worker earn only $52 to $60 in a month. This is very difficult to live the life. In at least the companies paid $7 in a day. That is good for the workers. So now at least garment workers get something more salaries and they improve the life. Is very good for us.
Economic trends are making it harder for middle-class families to afford to live in the communities where they work. This fact hasn't been missed by one state representative who is concerned and looking for a solution.
There are two trend lines that are happening right now. One is the cost of housing is routinely going up at a double-digit amount, and government support for those people who can't afford to live has literally dropped by 70% in 30 years. If we had the same amount of money from the federal government for affordable housing as we had in 1977, just 30 years ago, we'd have another extra $500 million a year for affordable housing. That's how much we've lost. Development programs have gone down by that much in our state. And the second part is the wages have gone down. My father, for example, his job was working in retail stores. He was able to raise a family working on retail stores. But now if you ask people, can you go out and raise a family working at Wal Mart or even Sears or Nordstrom's? No, not anymore. And so huge entire segments of our society now having jobs where there's kind of a race to the bottom, where you can't raise a family in the retail sector. And that's 15% of all jobs. So what do? We have to start deciding that we're either going to have to support people with government taxpayer dollars, or we're going to have to raise the minimum wage up so a minimum wage equals a living wage. Right now, we know for a fact that income is going up every year in our state by about 3%. However, most of the income, unfortunately, is going to the top third of our society. If we try to look for a government-only solution, boy, we'd have to be raising enough taxes for another extra $1 billion in direct subsidies for housing. And that's just too much money. The inflation factor is an inflation factor that we use that takes into account a lot of goods which very wealthy people get. What's the cost of plasma TVs? For goodness sakes, there's almost negative inflation for that, but there's a huge amount of demand at the upper income levels for buying those purchases. Let me tell you, not too many people are getting 50-inch plasma TVs down at the lower level. Same thing with computers. But you look at gas, basic foodstuffs, housing, healthcare, that every single person that's going up at a lot higher rate than the 3%. Income is going up, but income is going up tremendously for the top 20%. It's going down for everybody else.
Being able to afford to live where you work is also becoming a problem in Europe. A tent city has grown along the canal in Paris. The people living in the tents are employed.
Since last Christmas, an unusual scene has happened on the Canal Saint-Martin in Paris, France, that looks like a camping site. Indeed, over 400 tents had set camps along this popular area of Paris. This action was initiated by different associations that help out homeless people. In a neighborhood cafe nearby, Saïd Sekoun, one of the association's organizers, told me what this was all about. We're helping homeless people of all sorts. If they're French or foreigners, working unemployed, basically people who are going through hard times. In this crowd, there are workers who have contracts but say they don't have time to find a place. The fact of being a worker is an issue, since it will be very hard for them to get a social home or get taken care of by an organization. For many people, if you have a job, you have a house. There is a big problem now of housing in the city of Paris and around for low-salary workers. So that's why we have these people now on the canal. With over 380 people camping on the canal, more than 80 have a steady job, but don't have a home. And don't even register as homeless because they think, since I have a job, I can't complain. With this protest movement, people are demanding their right to an affordable home. I think measures from the government will be taken. Just now there is a new law being passed by the Minister of Housing and Development for people in difficult situations. These people want to be recognized socially. They're small workers, but they exist. When your salary is around 1,300 euros a month, and a small two-room apartment is between 600 and 700 euros a month, how can you live well? But they hope to get social homes, which are low-cost apartments owned by the city. Like in many cities in Europe, the problem is the same, but there is a hope, especially with the elections that will be taking place this year in France. Benjamin Marcus for Our View, Paris, France.
A look at our union history. Here's Ross Rieder.
On May 30th, 1937, striking Republic Steel workers and sympathizers attempted to establish a picket line at the front of the mill on Chicago's southeast side. The protesting marchers, including families from the surrounding community, halted when met by a line of Chicago police officers in a field north of the mill gate. Following a short standoff, violence erupted. 10 protesters died and approximately 90 were injured while retreating from police clubs, tear gas, and bullets. The episode stands as one of the most violent in the history of U.S. labor organization. 10 years later, novelist Howard Fast described the situation. Memorial Day in Chicago in 1937 was hot, humid, and sunny. It was the right kind of a day for the parade and the holiday, the kind of a day that takes the soreness out of a Civil War veteran's back, makes him feel like stepping out with the youngsters a quarter of his age. It was a day when patriotic sentiments could be washed down comfortably with Coca-Cola or a Tom Collins, as you preferred. And there's no doubt but that a good deal of the holiday feeling was present in the strikers who gathered on the prairie outside and around Republic Steel's Chicago plant. Most of the strikers felt good. Tom Girdler, who ran Republic, had said that he would go back to hoeing potatoes before he met the strikers' demands. The strike was less than a week old. The strikers had not yet felt the pinch of hunger, and there was a good sense of solidarity everywhere. Because it was such a fine summer day, many of the strikers brought their children out onto the prairie to attend the first big mass meeting, and wherever you looked, you saw 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds riding piggyback on the shoulders of steel workers. And because it was in the way of being their special occasion as well as a patriotic holiday, the women wore their best and brightest. A Paramount newsreel shot at the scene of the confrontation between police and Republic Steel strikers was used as evidence in the United States Senate's investigation of the incident. Although a local coroner's jury held the police blameless, the Senate and other investigative groups held that the 10 deaths were both caused by the police and were avoidable.
This has been Our View, brought to you by the members of the Washington Federation of State Employees. We remind you, when you accept a paycheck for your hard work, you don't give up your rights. Thank you for watching.